And welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis in the United States. And today, we're going to talk about possibly the biggest video in the election space that anybody could talk about right now that no one has talked about, that I think is very important for people to know going into the 2030s when it comes to U.S. electoral politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so, you know how all these people over the years in the 2020s, Republicans are going to become the fringe minority party because, the Democrats are going to win in the Rust Belt. We're going to, take Nevada with us. The Republicans are going to have Arizona and Georgia. And oh my God, look, we're going to win so big. We're going to win Florida. Like, we're going to kill it out here, right? But here is the problem. This map is a 2030 plus estimate of the U.S. Census, so we can look at what states gain in this apportionment forecast. Those go Oregon losing 1, California losing 4, Idaho, Utah, Arizona gaining 1, Texas gains 4. And by the way, this is the year 2024. We're not even close to 2030 yet, so it may even be worse for them by the time we get there. Texas is already projected to gain 4 electoral votes in 2024. We're only halfway to 2030, just saying. And the next election that would have this is 2032. Minnesota loses 1, Illinois loses 2, Pennsylvania loses 1, New York loses 3, Rhode Island loses 1. Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, those gain 1, but Florida gains 3. Texas gaining the most. So if you apply that to the U.S. Census and the Electoral College, what ends up happening is the Democrats, if they don't get their act together, are going to become the minority party at the presidential level. I know this is a bold take to give, but it's true. Because what's happening is the Democrats over the past couple of years were taking advantage of voters in the Rust Belt. They were taking advantage of voters in the Rust Belt, in the Northern East, and in California, and they were taking advantage of them, and they are now becoming the party of the elites, not of the working class how they used to be. They used to appeal to union voters way more. That's why Obama did so well in the 2000s. That's why Bush, for the life of him, couldn't even win Wisconsin. He couldn't even do it. He could not do it. While doing so good in the suburbs, he couldn't even win Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania. He couldn't win them. He could not do it. He literally could not physically do it. And here's the problem. Let's say the Republican wins Georgia. Look where they're at already. They're already winning 263 electoral college votes. Now, again, this estimate is not guaranteed to happen, but this is based out of all the data that we have from population changes. Like, this is as good of an estimate as you're going to get right now. And I would have said it would have been not as bad as this. I didn't think it would be this bad. And so if the Republicans already winning Georgia, they can win 4 out of the 5 states remaining and win the Electoral College. They could win Wisconsin while losing Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada and still win the Electoral College. They can still win the election without even winning any of the other voters. You can win Michigan and win. You could win Pennsylvania, which already gets you 270, by the way, and still win the Electoral College. You could even win Arizona and still win the Electoral College. This is how bad it is. They're losing population in the north because there are voters that have lost jobs due to TPP, and there's an electrical mandate, there's an EV mandate for those kind of cars. And not only that, you also have those areas having super high prices, super high taxes. And look, people are projected to leave those areas. They are. Notice all of those states have Democrat governors. All of them have Democrat governors. All of the states that are gaining in population have Republican governors except Arizona and North Carolina. And the ones that are gaining in the most population are Republicans. The ones who are losing the most have two very unpopular Democrat governors. Again, not me. This is what it's showing. But Gavin Newsom and Kathy Hochul are uniquely unpopular nationwide. DeSantis and Greg Abbott are not that popular nationwide, but are relatively popular. I would say their approval rating is probably in the mid 30s to low 40s nationally. Gavin Newsom has a 45% approval rating in his own state. He is not getting even above 35% nationally. He's not. In Hochul in New York, she barely beat Zeldin in a gubernatorial race. In New York, she barely won. So the places with the most unpopular Democrat governors are losing the most population. And J.B. Pritzker isn't that popular either, and they're losing too. And here, Texas gains 1. Florida gains 4. Florida gains 3. So what's happening is Democrats are taking advantage of voters in the Rust Belt, and those voters are leaving because those policies are not working out for them. They're losing jobs, so they're going down to Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, where the economy is more booming, and Arizona. Arizona is booming. Nevada hasn't changed, but that state's booming too. Look, you could win the Sun Belt and legit outright win the Electoral College. The Republicans wouldn't even need the Rust Belt anymore. Here's the problem. Georgia goes and the Democrats win. But here's the thing, Republicans, even if the black turnout was super good for a Democrat and they ran it up in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, they can't even win because they would lose Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. If the Democrat were to supercharge on black turnout, they literally probably wouldn't even be able to win if the Republican is even doing decently well with white voters, because they'd win North Carolina, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. And either way, if the Republican was even doing good enough with white voters, they'd probably still win Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan to begin with. And look at that. Look how crazy this is. The 312 map from this year gives Republicans 324 Electoral College results. Winning Minnesota gets you to 333. New Mexico gives you 338. New Hampshire and Maine, 344. Virginia, 357. Do you know how crazy that is? That this map that gets Republicans to 312 right now brings them to 324 in 2030 if that census change holds up. The Democrats could win the Sun Belt and still lose the Electoral College. They could even win Wisconsin and still lose the Electoral College. I'm telling you guys, the Democrats right now are not the party of the working class or the people. This is why the states with the most heavily unpopular Democrat governors are losing population, and it's hurting them politically. It's showing. It's literally showing. What's going to happen is Vance will probably do well in 28 if he's elected with white working class voters and probably win the Rust Belt. And Vivek, who may not have much appeal in the Rust Belt, in 2036 can literally just go to Georgia and Arizona and be like, oh, I win. And that's it. That's all they would have to do. And here is the worst part of it all. Georgia 2020 may have been a fluke. Let's say Georgia ends up going into the Republican column very narrowly for the next 20 years. Let's say that's the case. Let's say that happens, right? Which possibly may be the case. Nevada may be trending to the right, which it has been, and let's say Donald Trump is doing good enough with Hispanics. Let's say the Rust Belt doesn't like the Republican, they all vote blue. And Arizona is kind of stuck. Even if Arizona were to go blue because of Maricopa, and it would be, albeit very narrowly, because honestly, if Nevada's going red because Clark County, the Republicans doing that well with Hispanics, more than likely Arizona would go. But let's say in the hypothetical that Arizona were to go blue, they don't even win the Electoral College. They literally tie in the Electoral College. They tie. So even with the Rust Belt, and Arizona, they still cannot win the Electoral College. The Democrats are in deep trouble going into the future if they don't get their asses together and they start being the party of the working class again, they're going to get screwed in the general elections, and Republicans are going to have a way easier path to victory. And that's not even including Wisconsin, that's already been trending to the right. It's already been trending. FYI, this path that I'm showing you right here doesn't even give Donald Trump the Electoral College victory this year. Donald Trump would still lose. But in 2030, if all the census changes happen, look, Donald Trump would win the Electoral College. Or the Republican with just Wisconsin, Georgia, and Nevada wins. They win. Even if Nevada were to somehow go blue, the Republican could still win. They could still win the Electoral College. Even if this were to go blue, let's say all the Rust Belt goes blue, Arizona goes blue, but Nebraska second for whatever reason goes red, the Republican would literally win the Electoral College through the Sun Belt. This is how crazy it is. They would literally win the Electoral College. This is how you know that the Democrat policies are not working, because they're losing population in the northern part of the country and in California, and Republicans are net gaining in Texas and Florida, and with Republicans more than likely gaining with Hispanics throughout time, it's going to be really difficult for them to win those states. Now, if Texas were to go blue, at that point, it's GG, because at that point, Michigan would get them to the finish line. Arizona would even get them to 270. Funny enough, even if the Republican won the rest of the states, to Arizona and Texas would actually get them to 270. So that's kind of funny. But I mean, right now, with the Hispanic trends, Texas probably isn't going Democrat right now, at least in the next 10 to 20 years. Maybe if a Democrat's really popular and they're actually part of the working class, maybe they'll have a shot in Texas, but right now, that doesn't seem to be the case, especially with the southern border. And that's not even talking about states like New Mexico, which may move to the right this year. A state like Virginia may move to the right. You could literally have a winning path through Virginia and Wisconsin and flip Nebraska second and win. Or you could do Nevada and Arizona and win, or Virginia and Arizona and win the Electoral College. You could win through New Mexico and Georgia and get to 268 Electoral College votes and win Nevada and win. Like, it's so, I'm telling you guys right now, it is not looking good for the Democrats in the 2030s if this census change holds up. Because at that point, the Republicans probably could run somebody in the Rust Belt who could appeal there, or the Sun Belt, and win through the Sun Belt. So what's going to happen, here's the problem for Democrats. They're going to go nuts and focus on Arizona and Georgia and just hammer these, while the Republicans are going to continue to net gain in the Rust Belt, because more than likely, if this were to happen, the Democrats would be stupid enough and only focus on the Sun Belt. And then what would happen is the Republicans would capitalize on that and just sweep the Rust Belt and still win anyway. And still win. And still win. So it's a lose-lose situation, but they lost in the right amount of places to be in a really, really big predicament in 2032 and in 2036, which more than likely, if Donald Trump were to win, Vance would be running for re-election in 2032 and would probably have one of the easiest re-election bids of all time because of this. Because all they have to do is win Georgia and win Arizona, or win the Rust Belt, where he probably will have appeal by then. I know his favorabilities are in the mid-30s, but we all know if Donald Trump gets elected, his approvals will not be in the mid-30s. He will go up to the mid-40s, probably even more than that, depending on how the administration goes. And if the Democrats pick a Gavin Newsom or a Tim Walz or anybody else that's not Josh Shapiro or Wes Moore, they're going to lose that election. They're going to lose it. And if Vance runs for re-election and his term is moderately decent, he will probably win re-election. And at that point, if they throw in Vivek, oh God, especially after that many years of Republican rule, and if the economy gets better by then, oh man, they could just throw Vivek in Georgia and Arizona and win the presidency at that point. So guys, I'm telling you, Republicans this year, it's the Democrats, they screwed themselves over by being the party of the elites. The population trends always show who are the winners at the end. There is a reason why in the 1860s, the majority of the population at the top was able to dictate what happened. That's why slavery was able to be abolished, because the majority of the population was in the top, which was able to get Abraham Lincoln elected. This is why the Three-Fifths Compromise was implemented by the Founding Fathers, because the slave owners wanted to count the slaves as full people, But the founding fathers who were anti-slavery were like, hey, you can't do that because you said that they're your property. So you can't count them as a full person. Doesn't make any sense to count them as property, but count them as a full vote. And obviously the slave people, they were mad about that. Obviously, they were pissed. So they came to a compromise, and the founding fathers who were anti-slavery knew that eventually slavery would go away because they didn't have the full electoral power that they would have if they would have counted all of the black people as full persons. Because more than likely, if they had been able to do that, if an election was really close and a Democrat would have been elected back then, slavery may have existed for a little bit longer, or possibly we'd be living in a way different society right now. And so that is my take on the 2030s and why Democrats may become the minority party going into the 2030s if they don't get their act together. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.